All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to week number 9. That is right, week number 9 of your 9407 class, which is your intellectual freedom and its discontents class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. Chase K. Austin, and we are going to, again, keep this one fairly brief. I think my last two have been fairly brief, and this one's going to be fairly brief as well. Because ultimately, I do think that I have a lot of optional readings in the module this week. This is a module about, juveniles and intellectual freedom, and that's a very important topic. It kind of dovetails onto the previous topic that we had, which was the book bans and MAGA times, because a lot of times what we are seeing in the current day is when people are trying to challenge or ban books or have them moved to different areas of the library, they are claiming the kids, the kids, the kids, the kids, the kids. They love the kids. They love the kids. They got to protect the kids. We're not going to feed the kids. We're not going to make sure that every kid in America has free lunch while they're at school, but we love the kids enough that we're going to protect them from the scary Entanglements 3 book that might make them gay or something like that. We certainly don't want that because, I don't know, I guess gay people cause global warming. I don't know what's going on through the heads of these homophobes, but anyway, I'm not indulging it. What I am going to say is, yes, because there are so many optional readings that I do want you all to consider reading. You don't have to read them. That's why they're optional. But if you do consider reading them, I do think that they will enrich your experience within the course and some of the knowledge that you have related to juveniles and intellectual freedom. So having said that, let's do a state of the course update. And then I am going to talk a very little bit about free speech absolutism, but that might be something that I come back to because I am going to talk about it specifically in this case with Elon Musk and an article that I am going to put in this announcement, just kind of, well, a column that I'm going to put in this announcement that kind of also just talks a little bit about Elon Musk and his acquisition of Twitter and his claiming that he is a free speech absolutist. So first, let's just dive into the state of the course update. The big thing that you need to know is that your banned book or challenge book report is due this week. It is due this Sunday, and I am looking very, very forward to seeing those. I think that the past two semesters the past two iterations of the course, they've been in the fall, so they have not been the past two semesters. But spring 20 and spring 21 and spring 22, okay, past 3 semesters, I think they really enjoyed doing this assignment. It was a chance to learn more about books that have been challenged and banned and learn some different things about them. And also, again, it's peer-to-peer learning. So instead of learning from me, you're learning from your classmates. What's going to happen is once you all have posted all of your book reviews, I will then go on, I will then in my next check-in video, just encourage you all to, to read the work that your classmates have done. Also, I do, so that's the big thing that's coming down the pipe. The other big thing though that we have going on is that there is a sync session next Tuesday, October 24th. We will be talking about library neutrality. I am going to have a panel, but I still don't have my attendees confirmed. I've only got one confirmed, so this is going to be an interesting week trying to get my other people confirmed. But we are going to do what we're going to do, and it's a 50-minute session as opposed to last fall. It was an hour and 15 minutes, and we were able to discuss a lot more. But this is going to be fairly brief and kind of quick, but it's going to give you an intro to library neutrality, and you all need that. You've already had an intro to library neutrality. I'm sorry for that, but this is going to allow you to hear from some current practitioners about library neutrality, and that is very important. So that is the state of the course updates. So yes, you just be aware you have sync session next week, no check-in video, banned book report due this weekend, as well as your module discussion for intellectual freedom and juveniles. So outside of that, yes, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this. Free speech absolutism. This is something that, and I think I mentioned this the first week of class, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit more here. Free speech absolutism is, I think it's very elementary. And here's what I'm going to actually compare it to. And I think I will have at least one student. In fact, I'll call the student's name out. So yes, I do think that Bill in particular will relate to this comparison that I'm about to make. So I'm a I'm a Noahide now. I was raised a Christian. I was an atheist for a little while. Now I'm a Noahide. But what I will say is, during my atheist years, I was also on Facebook, and during that time, one conversation that I got into repeatedly was a conversation about the historicity of Jesus and whether or not the figure of Jesus Christ actually existed as a historical figure. And this is a highly debated thing in free thought circles, but surprisingly, it's not really debated among academics that much. You'll find a lot of atheists who are not academics and who are not well studied say they don't think that Jesus really even existed because of the lack of extra biblical sources that confirm Jesus' existence. But when you talk to scholars, scholars in the area of the historicity of Jesus, most of them do not buy that as a reason. And I'm not going to spend too much time on the video explaining why that's the case, but I'm just going to say those answers are out there. Particularly if you look up some of the scholarship of Bart Ehrman and some other people, you will get a better sense of that. But what I'm going to say is, yes, I am also a believer. At first, when I was looking at things from kind of an elementary viewpoint, a basic viewpoint, and not a very sophisticated viewpoint, I was saying, well, yeah, I don't even think Jesus even existed, because where's the proof? Where's the proof that Jesus existed? All you have are a few extra biblical writings, I think 5 that mention Jesus, and everything else is within the Bible. But then as I studied and learned more and more about why scholars don't actually feel that this is a legitimate approach, I did start to adapt the more of the Christopher Hitchens way of thinking. And Christopher Hitchens is somebody that believes that, or believed, Christopher Hitchens is passed on, but he believed, even though he was an atheist, he did believe that he said, quote unquote, form of deluded rabbi actually existed. And one of the big reasons that he gave for that was the fakery of the story. In other words, yes, the prophecy states that the Messiah will be born in the house of David, of David's line, in David's town. In other words, must be a direct male-to-male descendant of King David, and also must be born in Bethlehem. Now, as we all know, Jesus Christ, as described in the Bible, was actually raised in Nazareth. Yes, the Gospels put him as being born in Bethlehem, but raised in Nazareth. So Christopher Hitchens goes on to explain how a lot of the story within the Bible that gets Jesus in Bethlehem for birth is some information that is not historically sound, and then the Gospels kind of contradict each other on that. The reason I bring that up is to say that, yes, Christopher Hitchens does go on to say that if Jesus was not ever a real person, then why not just have him born in Bethlehem to begin with, and raised in Bethlehem to begin with, and not even mention Nazareth? So Christopher Hitchens, his basic point was to believe that, yes, because they fabricated the story to try to make this historical figure born in Bethlehem as opposed to Nazareth, Hitchens believes that faking the story probably means that, yes, there was some form of deluded rabbi who maybe was not born in the town of Bethlehem, who then was believed by non-Jews, a lot of non-Jews, to be the Messiah. And so, excuse me. And so in order to make him fit the story, or fit the mold of being the Messiah who needed to be born in Bethlehem, they did undertake a fabricated story to place Jesus as born in Bethlehem as opposed to Nazareth. I know that was very long-winded and kind of a ramble, but I'm bringing it back. Now, what I'm going to say is, yes, a lot of elementary thinkers, in the same way that they think that Jesus didn't exist because of very elementary reasons, free speech absolutism is actually it's not generally something that a lot of people who study intellectual freedom and argue about or do work in the area of intellectual freedom, a lot of those people actually are not free speech absolutists, but a lot of your lay people are free speech absolutists. A lot of people who are, and I'm a former newspaper reporter myself, a lot of people who are young journalists, like journalists within the first 1 to 5 years of their career, a lot of times they'll be free speech absolutists. And then you have like a lot of these people like Elon Musk who claim to be free speech absolutists as well. Free speech absolutism, I'm not going to really go into the pros and cons. You'll see the pros and cons mentioned briefly in this article. Again, I am going to just plug this hyperlink into, or this link into the announcement with the video. But yeah, the thing is that the cons outweigh the pros when you actually look at a lot of these things that discuss free speech absolutism and whether or not that's the correct path to go on. A lot of times, yes, your cons do kind of outweigh your pros, and that's actually why even the Supreme Court has limited, or the American judicial system, I should say, has limited free speech. And even though, yes, the First Amendment sounds almost like a like a free speech absolutist kind of law. I don't want to call it I don't know if I should call it an amendment, but a law. Even though the First Amendment seems on its surface to advocate for free speech absolutism, the Supreme Court and other courts have decided, hey, no, and that's what we talked about in the first part of the class. No, this is not speech that we should have, that is not speech that we should have, and so forth and so on. This is low value speech that does not contribute anything. And so actually here, what I want to do, rather than just kind of ramble on any further, is instead of giving you information, what I want to offer you tonight is kind of more so a challenge. And that challenge is to just keep an open mind and maybe even Google around and search some databases and just look for some materials about free speech absolutism if you indeed feel that you have the time for that. And the reason I would say that is because I think that the more people read about the flaws of free speech absolutism, the more unlikely they are to be free speech absolutists. But I am pretty sure that probably when this course started, close to 100% of you, if you were asked, are you a free speech absolutist, would have said yes. And my belief is that if I talk to you all after about 10 years of librarian experience and ask you, are you still a free speech absolutist, you're probably going to say no. But also one thing that I want to say with this is that even a lot of people who bill themselves as free speech absolutists are not free speech absolutists. And I do think that Elon Musk is Exhibit A. This article or column was written shortly after he took over Twitter. But we have seen that since he has taken over Twitter, it has not been so much that he's a free speech absolutist, but that he just believes that there is speech that should and should not be allowed on the platform that is different. He has different beliefs than the people who were running Twitter prior to his acquisition of Twitter. And quite certainly, actually, I'm actually still on Twitter, or X if they're calling it that now, whatever the case, whatever they're calling it. I'm actually still on there. And one thing that I'm going to say is that I've seen a lot of people leave. I have seen the landscape change. I actually can appreciate some of the changes in the landscape. But what I will also say is, since Elon Musk has acquired Twitter, I have had my account suspended twice. And I'd only had it suspended once in the over a decade that I was on Twitter before he acquired it. And my account was suspended because of things that I had tweeted out. I can't even remember what the second thing was, but one of the things that I tweeted out was just this critique of Russell Wilson, the quarterback Russell Wilson, and saying that there is a certain demographic that likes Russell Wilson because of how he portrays himself. A lot of respectability politics. If you don't know what that is, look that up. And just a lot of what I would call altruistic narcissism, and that is a thing, and you can look that up as well. Anyway, I'm not a fan of Russell Wilson, and I think he presents himself in a way to be liked by a certain segment of society, and I am somebody who specifically does not present myself that same way. And so I had some critiques, and those critiques got me suspended on Twitter for 2 weeks. So we're not dealing with a real free speech absolutist here. And then certainly Elon has also in the past suggested that he would make terms like cis flagged terms on the app, and apparently that goes back to some issue he has with transgenderism. And again, that's not something that I'm trying to get into right now. But what I'm going to say is, even people who claim to be free speech absolutists in their words and in theory tend to not be free speech absolutists in practice. And so what I'm going to want to leave you all with is just kind of thinking about that. Why would somebody want to say they're a free speech absolutist but then not behave like one? Okay, and I think that there's something to that. Again, that's something that you can Google around on, and that might be something that I revisit later in the semester. But I wanted to give you all just kind of that intro to that right now, and just say that, yes, a lot of people seem to be, especially in this field, and a lot of people who work in libraries now came out of journalism, by the way. But a lot of people who are in this field now are people who see themselves as free speech absolutists. A lot of students see themselves as free speech absolutists. A lot of librarians who are early career librarians see themselves as free speech absolutists. But then as you move on, a lot of times they do say, free speech absolutism is kind of dumb for this reason and that reason and that reason. And if you search, you will find some of those reasons, but I may come back and revisit and tell you some of those reasons as well. Depends on what I'm going to be talking about in other weeks for the rest of the class. Anyway, enough of that. I am going to leave it there. I am Dr. Jace, and I love the baseball playoffs, because people are trying to get further than third base. But keep in mind, keep your minds out of the gutter. We're talking in baseball terms. Getting to home plate just means that you are scoring a point for your team. Get that mind out of the gutter. Y'all know better. All right, I will see you all next week, but not in a check-in video. It will be in a sync session. Have a wonderful week, and I am an email away.